Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Welcome to this thing that I do called Thor's Entertainment. I am Thor, and today we are picking up part 2 of my playthrough through the Season 1 Invasions mode for Mortal Kombat 1. And for context, the Invasion mode is something that changes seasonally for Mortal Kombat 1. It is a mode in that game where some major threat from another dimension comes into the main continuity for Mortal Kombat, trying to destroy the world or conquer it or some crap like that. And then we get to select a character from the universe where this conflict is taking place in, and then we get to pilot that individual all the way to the big bad boss that is invading and then kick the crap out of them. I think that pretty much sums up the invasions mode in a nutshell. There is a little bit more to it than that, but from just a storytelling perspective, that is about it. And here in Season 1, the big bad guy that's coming into this universe to try and destroy it, well, that's an alternate dimension Scorpion. That alternate dimension Scorpion came here because, well, he was looking for a replacement for his wife that was murdered in his timeline. Now, it being Scorpion and Hanzo Hasashi specifically that is Scorpion, regardless of what timeline it is, he seems to always be put in a situation where his wife and child and ninja assassin clan are killed off. So I guess it makes sense that if he were to discover multidimensional travel, he would probably look around for a timeline where his wife is still alive. And that's exactly what he was going to do, and eventually he landed here, and this was not his first stop. In fact, there have been several stops along the way, and every single time his wife was already dead. And in this universe, his wife is married to another individual. So he kind of just snapped and said, fuck it, I am tired of feeling this pain, this loneliness, and I'm just going to murder everybody by setting the world on fire or something along those lines. And so far in the invasion mode, I have selected Reptile, and we have jumped around a few different dimensions and beat up some of the main people supporting Scorpion in his conquest of this new universe. We are continuing that theme here in the Tarkatan colony as we are looking for the next boss battle as we continue to jump around jump around realms until we eventually find Scorpion himself. And now that we are caught up with everything that happened in the last episode, which, despite playing for an hour, not a whole lot actually happened, I want to go ahead and just try to be a little bit positive going into this new episode. One of the reasons I say that is I kind of had a lot of negative things to say about how the invasion mode ended up shaking out in that very first season. So instead, this time around, I'd like to start off by just saying some of the things I actually find positive about this mode. First off, that tutorial level, despite, being a tutorial level, was really cool to see. There were a lot of Easter eggs and just fun little references. And on top of that, the unique dialogue from Johnny Cage was appreciated. Even if it was just in tutorial form, I will pretty much always appreciate getting to hear some unique dialogue from a character. And in that case, it was mostly a bunch of jokes from Johnny Cage, which it's not a whole lot of storytelling, but it's still unique, and it helped to break things up a little bit instead of just doing back-to-back random fights that don't really have too much significance to the overall story. So yeah, Johnny Cage helped to give us some direction and a kind of cool area to explore, so that is a plus in my book. I do like the concept of the invasions being seasonal. That idea by itself is good to me because every 3 months or so something new is happening. There's some new threat that you can play against, and it gives me a little bit of a reason to come back to the game and play through something new. So even if I don't really like how it's being executed here in Season 1, I'm hoping that eventually changes and we can really make the most out of these seasonally changing conflicts. And I do like how the boss battles come in multiple phases, making them pretty unique when compared to other enemies in the game. It actually does make them feel somewhat like a boss battle, having to defeat them multiple times in slightly different ways. That's not a bad touch. The mini-bosses or sub-bosses really need that to be done for them as well, but you know what, it's still something for the main bosses, and I like that. So there we go, right off the bat I gave off like 3 good positive notes for the invasions mode.
As the resistance against him hardens, Scorpion summons his timeline's fiercest demons to the fight. Ashra yearns to break the will of Scorpion's enemies with her unholy Chris.
So I have now guaranteed that this will not be a fully negative episode as I critique the invasions mode, and since this is going to be the last episode for the invasions mode for Season 1, we are going to get to see a really cool cutscene at the very end, and right, okay, we'll make that 4 positives then. Because the opening cutscene, where Scorpion is first invading the area, and then the ending cutscene for however we decide to resolve this situation. Those are both really cool in my book, and I think we could have used some more stuff like that. Also, anytime I say that I would like to see something new in the game or invasion mode changed in some way, it is worth noting that I am doing this voiceover December 13th. So there's a very good chance that some of the things I'm complaining about, if I complain about anything or any suggestions that I give, some of those may have actually already been corrected or implemented. Because I'm not going to be releasing this episode until probably a month or two from now, because right now I'm playing through Mortal Kombat 11 story mode, and then I'm going to be playing through Mortal Kombat 1 story mode, and after I'm done with the story mode for Mortal Kombat 1, that's when this releases. So yeah, I wanted to throw that context out there that some of the things I'm pointing out might not be relevant anymore, but they at the very least were relevant for Season 1, so I'm okay with doing this whole review of how it was then and offering up my suggestions, or just things that I think would have been kind of cool to see. Like right now, we are in the middle of a boss fight against the invading scorpions version of Ashra. I have zero issues with this boss fight. I like the multiple phases. We even got Liu Kang popping up for a brief moment before the fight, and he gave us some dialogue and narration in relation to Ashra and how she is going to be invading and how Scorpion is commanding the demons from the nether realm, stuff like that. Like, that's really not a bad touch, and it's not much, but it lets you know what's going on and lets you know that, Scorpion is commanding the demons. But as we saw in the last episode with Sub-Zero as a final boss for the Outworld area, the Sundo area, not every single level boss has dialogue like that. So you're just randomly fighting some boss and you have zero context as to why you're fighting them. You just know that it's Scorpion's version of this fighter. I would really like to see that improved upon. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a voice actor giving narration every single time even, because I understand that you may not necessarily have the money to pay the voice actor to come back in and record new lines, and maybe they're just not available, maybe they're doing something else. But you could at least put the character's picture up on the screen with a little bit of a text dialogue saying, hey, this is this person from this dimension, they're supporting Scorpion for this reason, go kick their ass. I mean, it's better than nothing. And at least it lets you know, hey, this is why I'm in this city in Outworld, and this is what I am trying to fight forward to do. And then you're also like collecting key items in these areas, like at the very beginning we had to go find Madame Beau's key. Why did we have to find Madame Beau's key? Why did the character that we ended up fighting have Madame Beau's key? There was zero explanation for any of it, so despite it being a key item, it's just completely random that you come across it. Go ahead and add a text box saying, hey, this character's possession has been stolen by this invader. Go find that invader and get it back. Like, it's not much, but just a little bit of extra dialogue and explanation, some sort of build up to the situation would have gone a long way. But instead, we're just wandering around almost aimlessly, hoping that something randomly drops like a key that you need to advance in the area. So yeah, I like what they did with the Ashra boss fight. I like the dialogue that they did right before it to build it up just a little bit. And I feel like if we got a little bit more stuff like that for other bosses and for key items, this would be a little bit more fun to play through. You'd have some real objectives instead of just wandering around. And it does not necessarily even have to be Liu Kang showing up every single time. Whenever we were in Sundo, it would have been kind of cool to see a character in relation to that city pop up. Like, what if we got Li Mei showing up and saying, hey, some random ass Sub-Zero is here murdering a bunch of civilians. We need to go find him now. Also, we need to find the festival key. It's gone missing because Sub-Zero's partner Smoke stole it. Some shit like that. I mean, it's something. You get to see some dialogue in relation to a character for that area, and I'm going to keep going back to it. It doesn't feel like you're just wandering around aimlessly waiting for something to happen. And at this point, we are in Shang Tsung's laboratory. Yeah, we finished up our business in the Tarkatan colony whenever we beat up Ashra, so nothing important left there. We're ready to just proceed on to this new area and explore around a little bit. And we get to look for whoever is causing trouble at Shang Tsung's place. Which, from an invasion standpoint, I find it kind of weird that one of Scorpion's major fighters is just hanging out in Shang Tsung's lab. Like, let's consider all the areas up to this point. Kitana was in the village from Raiden and Kung Lao's chapter at the very beginning of the story mode. So that's where they live. It's a major populated area, so there's some value in going there. Plus, if Scorpion had his own Kung Lao and Raiden from his timeline, he would already know that they would be kind of a threat, so sending Katana there to maybe neutralize them from the start would be kind of smart, and then you get control over the general population. And the same thing is kind of true with Sundo and Outworld. It's another major city. I mean, it's very close to the throne for Outworld, where Sindel was throughout the story mode, so it's like their capital, kind of. So sending Sub-Zero there also makes sense because you could take the capital of Outworld. The Tarkatan colony makes a little less sense. After all, it's just a place where a bunch of people are sick and being quarantined. Granted, that's a sickness that makes you basically superhuman until the point that you die, but still not a major contribution to the world of Outworld. But whatever, it's still a decently populated area, so sure, why not send Ashra there. But what is the significance of Shang Tsung's lab? It's not a city. Besides Shang Tsung himself, there's not really any key characters that hang out here, at least not anymore after Reptile build. Like, you could say there might be some sort of research from Shang Tsung that might be useful to Scorpion in some way, but that feels like it might be a little bit of a reach. So when it comes to some sort of an interdimensional conquest, I don't really see why this area is so important that you'd send some of your best fighters and some of your supposedly undead army. So this is a great time to ask for a dialogue box of some kind saying, hey, there's a guy here trying to get something from Shang Tsung. This is that something, go stop that from happening. Because more than any other level, even though it is cool to be wandering around this area, it is interesting and cool to look at, but more than any other level, I don't really see why we are here. Alright, now we are fighting the mini-boss version of General Shao, or maybe just Shao Kahn actually, because this is not the Shao from this world, this is some other world Shao. Scorpion's Shao. So yeah, he could have been Kahn in his dimension. So even though I keep screwing that up and keep calling General Shao Shao Kahn because he was Shao Kahn forever, for once I might not actually be wrong, it might be Shao Kahn in his world. And now I can just pretend like I did not say anything incorrect. Yay! Anyway, here is another sub-boss fight that doesn't really feel any different from the regular fights. Just something that really needed to be distinguished a little bit more from the random encounters we have to do basically hundreds of times. Or at least it feels like hundreds of times. Before I edited the crap out of this video, I did not bother to count how many encounters I actually got when playing through this. I may have to do that for Season 2 or Season 3, because I'm kind of curious, just how many fights do you have to do to beat the invasion mode? I know it's a lot, like way more than it probably should be, but what is the actual number? I'm guessing it's over 100. I mean, it has to be over 100. There's like 6 levels. And fortunately, the Shang Tsung laboratory level is pretty short when compared to the others. We are already at the very end of it. All we have to do is fight the boss for this level, and that boss happens to be Havoc. And similar to Sub-Zero and Sundo, there is no narration, no text box, no nothing. Nothing to explain why exactly Havoc is here, or what Havoc's role is within Scorpion's little invasion effort. He is just here and we have to fight him in order to move on. Like, he could have done something with Havoc. Like, he could be here looking through Shang Tsung's stuff, looking for some sort of an alchemy concoction that would make Scorpion even more powerful, or maybe he wants to betray Scorpion and is looking for a way to neutralize his Hellspawn powers. It sounds like something that Shang Tsung would have around here somewhere. Or hell, maybe he's here to strike up a deal with Shang Tsung. He is the Chaos guy after all. It makes sense he would do something a little bit more unpredictable and not actually helping Scorpion. But no, we don't get any sort of an explanation in regards to that. He is just here, fight him, and move on. And you know what? I will. I am going to fight Havoc, and I'm going to win, damn it. Because one thing I really have no complaints about whatsoever is just the gameplay in Mortal Kombat when it comes to the fights. Like, fighting feels good in Mortal Kombat 1. It's probably the best that it has felt since Mortal Kombat 10. I think I like it better than Mortal Kombat 10, but it is really, we'll call it a close race. So yeah, I don't mind fighting in this invasion mode, even though there's probably a little bit too many fights to do in the invasion mode. So yeah, there we go. We have another 5th compliment for this invasion mode. Fighting the enemy feels pretty smooth and I enjoy doing it. I just wish there was a little bit more of a reason for why I am fighting the people that I am fighting. Because in cases like Havoc here, there is no reason. It's just, here's the bad guy, go ahead and win. Actually, we don't even know if Havoc is the bad guy. I mean, we just showed up here, we don't know what he's doing, we didn't ask him. For all we know, he's here asking for help. And we said, look, it's Havoc, go kick his ass! Actually, if that scenario is true, Havoc is probably loving it. After all, he is the harbinger of chaos, and just kicking some random person's ass in Shang Tsung's laboratory without asking any questions, that feels pretty chaotic and in the spirit of the character. So you know what, if you see Havoc around, just go ahead and fight him. I'm sure he's gonna love that shit. And alright, the Havoc fight has advanced to another phase. He has the red mist mode going on. So I mentioned in the previous episode, one of the reasons why it is not advantageous to try doing a defensive build in these invasion modes is because the boss battles tend to get to the point where in late phases, the boss is doing damage over time to you based on your proximity to them. So they're hurting you without ever even touching you. Which, whenever the fight is timed like this one is, that's not the end of the world, you can just win with a timeout. But when you face the final boss of the entire invasion mode, that fight is not timed. You have infinite time. The only way to win is to actually deplete the enemy's health. And whenever they are doing damage to you without ever actually hitting you, and you can't hit them hard enough to deplete their health faster than the residual damage is taking health away from you, yeah, you're not going to win that. Not without a lot of luck. So yeah, that is an example of what I was talking about whenever I brought that up in the last episode. So yeah, Havoc, your red mist is bullshit. I don't like it. Actually, no, it's perfectly fine. I was just trying to cheese the game by putting all my stat points into defense and health. Like, it is not reasonable to expect that people would be trying that or being successful doing it. Like, literally the only reason I was being successful whenever I did that previously was because every single fight that I did, I was winning with a timeout. Which is really time consuming, but it's surprisingly funny and very effective. If it weren't for the final boss not being timed, I'm pretty sure I could have won the entire invasion mode like that. And even though I do not win this fight with a timeout, it does feel like this fight goes on forever. Like, I don't even think it's actually been that long, but it feels like this fight has taken a really, really long time. And on top of that, I ended up taking a decent amount of damage in this fight, like the most I think I've taken in a pretty long time. And almost all of it that I can see, or like the most meaningful damage from it, all came from that passive damage due to proximity to Havoc. But even so, it was working out for Havoc a little bit. I mean, he did end up getting me below 30% health in the end. But it was not enough. I end up closing this thing out with the, oh, what is it called? The behind you brutality for reptile. Or just the running man fatality in my eyes, because you just sprint past the person and then whoop, there goes your torso. But regardless of how it happened, that is the end for Havoc, and that is the end for Shang Tsung's laboratory. It is time to move on to the very next level. And the next level for us is going to be the Living Forest. So we're staying in Outworld. I think that's the 4 Outworld levels in a row. But at least the Living Forest kind of makes sense as the next level, because if the story mode led me to believe anything, it is that apparently the Living Forest is within walking distance of Shang Tsung's lab. After all, the protagonists got there very quickly after escaping from Shang Tsung's little jail. So yeah, okay, thematically that makes sense. Kind of similar to Shang Tsung's lab though, it is just a forest, so I'm not sure why the invasion effort would be focusing here, or why one of Scorpion's best fighters would just be hanging out around this forest, but hey, why not? Let's go find them and deck them. Now, I don't remember if we end up fighting on this stage in the Living Forest in this little level that we're on, but one of my favorite stages that they brought into Mortal Kombat 1 is the corrupted version of the Living Forest. Like, just the background of that fighting stage looks really, really cool, and it's definitely my favorite, or... Wait, do I have a favorite? Okay, I don't know if I actually have a favorite, but if it's not my favorite, it is very high on the list. Like, it's definitely like top 3. Because it just looks really, really cool. And alright, with that victory against the random Johnny Cage in the woods, we ended up unlocking another brutality for Reptile. This one being the Pop Belly Brutality. And I think after unlocking that one, we have unlocked all of Reptile's brutalities. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that that was the last one. which ironically I think is one of the easiest brutalities to get with reptile because you can combo into that attack pretty easily. I know when I was using reptile a lot, it was usually between that one and the crocodile done right brutality. Just because my preferred combo, my go-to combo, it ends with the alligator roll, so you could do that brutality. And before you do the alligator roll, you do the exact attack needed for the pop belly brutality. So it's really up to you how you want to end it. But yeah, we're going to get to show off every single reptile brutality and fatality in this invasion mode. And that's kind of cool. It's something I already did when I was doing the Combat League videos for reptile, but why not? We'll go ahead and show them off one more time. It is kind of a nice way of breaking up the events of this invasion mode. If we're going to do all these random fights, we may as well show the ones that end pretty nicely. And after taking down just one more Johnny Cage person in the woods, we end up getting a key item for this torch. And apparently we're going to need that to get into another area of the living forest. Did not realize we even needed that. I don't even think I was looking for it. I was just doing a random fight, and whoop, there it is. I guess we have what we need to proceed in this level now. Zero build up to why I need this, but I will take it, and we will try to get this thing done as quickly as possible. After all, none of this really matters until we get to Scorpion, so let's just try and get there as quickly as possible. And even though I said that I wanted to get this level done as quickly as possible, I should be completely honest, when I was playing through the Living Forest level, I did not remember where I needed to go. I specifically recall that this was the level I remembered the least, so I was kind of just wandering around hoping that something would jog my memory and let me know that I was going in the right direction. So that's one of the reasons I ended up finding that torch before I ever even saw that there was a locked area that required it. So yeah, sure, I'm going to try and get this done as quickly as possible, but quickly as possible does not necessarily mean that it is actually going to be quick. There is a solid chance I am just going to be wandering around just a little bit. I think I try to cut that out as much as possible so you don't have to watch me doing it, but unavoidably there is going to be a little bit of wasted time in this level. But yeah, while I am talking about wasted time, I mentioned just a moment ago that really the only thing that matters in this story mode is when you get to Scorpion. Like, nothing else that occurs is really significant whatsoever. It's really all just filler until you get to him. I'll go ahead and say that Season 2 is not much different in that regard, and since I intend on doing a video for Season 2 as well, I kind of have to consider if I am going to do a full video like I did here. And by full video, I mean showing me go the exact path through each of the levels until I finally get to the final boss. Because originally I did want to show that, because there's plenty of great scenery in these levels to see. There are some unlockables along the way that I think are kind of cool to see. And some of the fights are kind of worthwhile, especially if you are unlocking fatalities and brutalities along the way. But I'm sure you've already noticed I don't really have too much to say about the invasion mode anymore. Like, I kind of covered everything that I like about it. I've covered a lot of what I don't like about it. And unfortunately, the things that I don't like about it cause me to not have too much to say because nothing is really happening. At least nothing you haven't seen before. So I'm kind of considering, do I want to cut more out of Season 2 than I cut out of Season 1? Because I could probably try and fit it all into one episode instead of breaking it into two like I did for this one, because while I do want to show off lots of aspects of the invasion mode, I don't really know if it's really worth seeing. At least not worth seeing enough to make two different, almost hour-long videos. So yeah, I'm going to have to think that one over. One of the reasons I make these videos is so I can go back and reminisce about my former gameplay, and just see what I was doing around the time when I was recording these videos, kind of just see how I was enjoying the game at the time and see what I was thinking whenever I was playing through it. So a part of me wants to keep it like this so that I can go back and see that part of my life whenever I want to go back and look at these videos. On the other hand, I don't know if even future me wants to listen to me bitch about missed opportunities with invasion mode for an hour, so who knows, the next one I do of this invasion mode might be a lot shorter. And while we deal with Raiden and make our way to the boss for this level, what are some other things going on in the world of Mortal Kombat? Well, as I am recording this, I've been watching the video displaying Quan Chi's gameplay, And Quan Chi is released as a DLC character tomorrow as of the time that I am recording this video, although I'm sure he will have been out for a very long time before this actually gets uploaded. After Sub-Zero, I'm not sure who I am going to use next in my Fatal Friday videos where I go into the Combat League and do brutalities and fatalities, just earning those against real people. Although after Quan Chi releases, if I like the way he plays, he might be the very next one after Sub-Zero. And obviously, since I have not actually played the character, I have no idea if he plays very well for me. But I will say what I'm seeing from the trailers for his gameplay, just the way his attacks look, the animations that he does, all of them look really, really cool. So even if he is not necessarily a very good character, I think he'll be a very fun character to play just to see how everything looks whenever he's executing combos and things like that. His portal attacks where he's just hitting you from full screen, kicking you and then sending out the skeletons and the tentacles from the nether realm, all of it just looks really, really, really cool. So yeah, I am looking forward to trying out Quan Chi whenever he does come out. Oh, and speaking of Fatal Friday, on the very last day for Season 2, I went into the Combat League and I kind of just said, screw it. I don't care how many times I lose. I'm going to try and get the very last of Natara's brutalities. And I'm trying to think of what it is called, but it's her Blood Bolt related brutality. That one has just been very, very hard to get. And every now and then I'll pick her back up and go into the Combat League and try to get it, and I just was not having any luck. But I finally got to the point, I'm like, you know what, I really want to do this video. I'm just going to sit down and take however long that I need to in order to finally get it. And yeah, I finally did actually get that brutality. Whenever that video comes out, I'll go into way more detail about why that one was really, really hard to get.
At Scorpion's insistence, Johnny Cage has arrived to help obliterate this timeline. Nothing will scorch it faster than Hollywood's hottest star.
But yeah, it was a challenge, and I'm really happy now because that means I have done every single Natara fatality and brutality. And for a while there, I did not think I was going to be able to get that brutality. It took a lot of luck, like there was a plan to getting it, but it was still really lucky. And cool, we are in another boss battle, and this time it is against the Scorpion's other version of Johnny Cage. And unlike the irrelevant Havoc that we fought back in Shang Tsung's laboratory, Johnny Cage here was apparently good enough or important enough to get some narration from the fire god Liu Kang. I am really curious what the decision making was like trying to decide which of these characters was going to get some sort of an explanation, or which of them was worthy enough to be hyped up by the fire god, and which ones were not. As it stands, though, Liu Kang was just not willing to sell Havoc as a top bill threat for our reptile, and yeah, he got absolutely no fan service, and we disposed of him really easily and really quickly. Or was it really easily? I mean, I think, I've already forgotten. I think he actually got me down to red health, so maybe it wasn't as easy as I'm remembering. As I am cutting out these fights, I know that the video itself probably has not been very long since we fought Havoc, but for me actually cutting everything out of this video, it has been a little while. So yeah, I have already forgotten if the Havoc fight was actually any challenging. So far though, the Johnny Cage fight is going pretty smoothly. We are already in his second phase, and I think he only has 3, so if we keep this up, we should do just fine. Actually, no, he has 4 phases. In 3 of them, you're fighting directly against Johnny Cage, and in the third one, it's basically a survive level, where you're dodging a bunch of energy projectiles and just trying not to take too much damage because, if I'm remembering correctly, whatever health you have left over from the survive element of this boss fight is how much health you get to use in the final fight against the last phase of Johnny Cage. And I know whenever I played through this the first time around, getting through the survive part with a good amount of health was actually more difficult than the actual fight against Johnny Cage. I believe against Johnny Cage was one of the only times I actually lost the first time that I played through this invasion mode. And the loss that I ended up taking was almost entirely because I took way too much damage during the survive element of the boss fight. Going into the 4th phase after the survive element, I had, well, I don't actually know how much health I had, but I didn't have a lot. And even though Johnny Cage is not that difficult to fight against, whenever you have like 25% health left, It really doesn't matter who you're fighting, that's gonna be a lot harder to win. So yeah, I ended up taking at least one loss to Johnny Cage whenever I played through this the first time, and I think I won it the next time I fought against him, like, I think it only took me 2 attempts. And after having played through the entire invasion mode for Season 1 once before, whenever I got back to Johnny Cage in this playthrough, I already knew what to expect, and as a result of that, it was much easier in this fight than it was then. I was a bit more prepared for the survive moment, and I definitely took it a lot more seriously, knowing that the overall health was going to carry over into the final part. And as you got to see there, I won against Johnny Cage. And I end up finishing him off with a fatality that we have already shown off a couple of times, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that out now so that we can kind of at least cut down the video length a little bit. And with that victory now out of the way, we are ready to go on to the final level of the invasion mode. We are heading to the Fire Temple, and suddenly we are very nearly done with this playthrough. I am going to be skipping a lot of fights here on this level, even more than I already have been, because let's be honest, the only thing that we really want to see at this point is how this ends. What is the conclusion? What do we do when we fight Scorpion? Well, let's go ahead and take a walk through the area and figure out where he is and get this fight going. So I went ahead and took a look to the future of this video just to get an idea of what was coming next. I wanted to know what the next big milestone would be, what the next big fight would be, just any major event. And we have a little bit of time to kill. I of course have to do just a bunch of different fights. I have to do some survival, and I also have to do at least one tower. But I don't really get anything interesting in any of those encounters, so there's really nothing to show. The only real mention-worthy things that I saw were the boss fights. One is against Liu Kang, one is against Li Mei, and then there is the final one against Scorpion. So yeah, it looks like we're gonna get at least 3 fights on this level. There might be 1 or 2 more, but I think that's gonna be about it. So yeah, I'm really striving to make this level as short as possible because I do really just want to get to the point and see how this thing concludes. Although I really do like the design of the Fire Temple and the aftermath of Scorpion invading. You get to see all the charred or on fire bodies. Really gives the feeling that he has been here and he has been fucking shit up. So yeah, it was a nice touch to tailor the surroundings to the person that you're trying to fight that is also inhabiting that area. It would have been cool to have seen some more of that kind of detail in the other levels. And hey, maybe there was some of that detail and I just wasn't seeing it, but it feels like this is the only time so far throughout all of these levels that the surroundings really reflect the conflict that we are now involved in and the person that we are going against. So yeah, I just really like the detail of this final level. And finally, after cutting out about half of the map and just, stalling for time as I was speaking and just rambling, we have finally made it to one of the sub-bosses for this level. The very first one is going to be Liu Kang. Now, this sub-boss is not anything too challenging. Unlike the main bosses for each level, this individual does not come in multiple phases. He just has one phase, but Liu Kang does have a lot of health. So even though he does not hit very hard, and even though we're not going to get this fight drug on in multiple phases, it is going to take me a little bit of time to chip away at the excessive amount of health that he has. Not to worry though. Since he can't hit me very hard, there's really not much he can do to me to prevent me from eventually coming out of this with a victory. And eventually we're going to walk away from this thing, and then we're on to Li Mei. Or maybe a random fight in between this one and Li Mei, but eventually Li Mei. And then eventually Scorpion. And then we will see if there is enough time left in this video for me to include the Titan battle against Baraka. Which I think there is going to be enough time. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. Looking at the time I have for this recording so far, it looks like it's going to cap out at about 53 minutes. I think I can get that video of Baraka in this video and it not take more than about 7 minutes so we don't go over the hour mark. We will see though. Alright, I do have to do one fight before Li Mei, and that's going to be in this tower. Technically there are a bunch of fights in this tower, but I'm skipping all but the very last one. And the reason for that is that that's the only one that really matters. I have to go in and fight the final battle against Shang Tsung at the top of this tower, and after beating him, I acquire a sacred key. And I need the sacred key to get past that gate we saw earlier and then proceed on to the final boss. Now, why does Shang Tsung have the sacred key? I don't know. Just like every other key item in this game, no one bothers to say why anyone has anything. They just have it. You don't even necessarily know that you need it half the time. But yeah, go find it. But yeah, I found it, and now we are on to, I believe, the final two battles of the invasion mode. Or at least the only two required battles of the invasion mode, because the Titan battle is completely optional when it comes to beating this thing. Alright, and just like that, the gate is open, and now we are heading to that platform over there, and that is where we are going to find the boss, Li Mei. Now, unlike her sub-boss counterpart, Liu Kang, Li Mei actually has multiple forms. In fact, there are 3 phases to this fight. Now, the first one's pretty standard. It's exactly like every other fight you've ever done in this thing. You just fight them until their health bar depletes. No additional special abilities or any crap like that. But after you deplete the health bar for the very first time, that's when things start to get a little bit more interesting. Kind of similar to the other main bosses for each level. Li Mei then starts to do damage over time just based on your proximity to her. And as we saw in some of the other fights, like against Havoc, that's pretty much the only way my health ever gets low. So once we get to phase 2, things will start to be a little bit more challenging. I am going to say the word challenging pretty loosely here because honestly these things are not that hard. But yeah, more challenging. And then phase 3, I don't actually know what's different about phase 3. She's still doing damage over time if you're close to her, and maybe she has an additional special ability. I don't really remember what the hell it is. Obviously, it did not stand out enough for me to remember it in this conversation right now. But that's alright though. I do like how this level has each of the bosses basically right next to each other. Like we fought Liu Kang, and then the only other fights we had to do were in the tower. And then we go all the way here to Li Mei, and I believe just to the left of Li Mei's pad is when we find Scorpion. So all these guys are basically right next to each other, and I'm pretty happy about that. It's a hell of a lot better than me having to go to like each corner of the map to find them or something. So as grindy as this invasion mode has been, at least the creators had the foresight to make this last part a little bit faster. Alright, phase 2 of Li Mei is going pretty smoothly. I mean, it had to be better than the first phase, and that first one I barely ever got hit, so anything would have been an improvement for Li Mei. In this second phase, I actually took a little bit of damage, at least like close to half my health, I think. So hey, good for you, Li Mei, you are improving! But the improvement was not quite enough, as now we are depleting her health and going into the third and I think final phase of Li Mei. Man, I really hope there's not a fourth phase, but yeah, let's go ahead and do it. We're gonna win this thing. And for some reason, I really like this costume for Li Mei. Whenever you beat her in this fight, you end up unlocking it, and that has been my Li Mei costume pretty much ever since the day I beat this boss. Now, I don't really use Li Mei, other than maybe going into practice mode to learn a couple of things. Like, I had to take her into practice mode just to see what her combos were and what was punishable so I could commentate on it, since in one of my Fatal Friday videos I was fighting a Li Mei user. And there were some things I saw in that fight that made me wonder what was punishable and what wasn't, and I wanted to be able to point those out. So yeah, I have never used Li Mei as a main character for anything other than her chapter and story mode. And maybe I'm gonna have to change that at some point because I did not mind playing as Li Mei. I will keep that one in mind because I do need to pick another character to play around with. And it looks like Li Mei is doing pretty well in this fight. Prior to that last big combo, we were actually around the same amount of health, at least percentage-wise. But yeah, I guess she's landing a few good hits and that damage over time is starting to add up. But considering the big damage that last combo did, I really only need one more of those and then this fight is basically over. Or, well, a throw turned into a brutality will do as well. It is nice to have a lot of options, and now that Li Mei is out of the way, that means one thing and one thing only, and it is beautiful to hear. There is only one fight left. Next up, we are going against the invading Scorpion. We're going to take on the final boss of the invasion mode, and we're going to wrap this thing up.
Denied his family, his clan, and now his vengeance, Scorpion blazes with demonic fury. He will inflict it on all of his tormentors.
Time to see how the invasion will end. With that cutscene out of the way, let's go ahead and get in there and start this fight. Also, I did really like the cutscene. I like pretty much all of the animated cutscenes that are in the invasion mode. The art style looks really nice and it's just all around pretty cool. So the boss fight for Scorpion is going to be very similar to all of the previous final level bosses. I think it's supposed to be the hardest one, but it functions about the same way. Like all the others, there is going to be a bunch of phases, I think 4 of them. Once you get to phase 2, there's automatically going to be damage over time based on proximity. There is at least one survive part to this fight, although I think there are 2. And similar to the other occurrences for the survive, however much health you have remaining after that survive portion is how much health you will have in the very next phase of the fight against Scorpion. Also, the survive mode for this fight is kind of cool because I don't think that we have gotten it anywhere else in the invasion up to this point. I'll commentate on it just a little bit more whenever we actually get to that part of the fight. Right now, we are just now entering phase 2. Right after we depleted his health for the very first phase, Scorpion decided he was going to bust out some fireball moves that we have not seen him do at any other point. So yeah, suddenly Scorpion is getting new abilities. And I think he does that every single time you deplete his health bar. He will just start throwing fireballs at you as you enter the next phase. He either does that or you enter the survive mode. Which I kind of forgot about something until I was watching this video back for, editing purposes. I thought Scorpion just threw the fireballs whenever his health was depleted and it was the start of a new phase. What I did not realize was he could start throwing fireballs at pretty much any point in the rest of the fight, because I saw him doing that mid-round just a moment ago. So yeah, that's not just a brief random gimmick, he can just do that pretty much whenever he wants. That's kind of cool. Alright, and now we are in the middle of the survive mode that I was hinting at earlier. Pretty much every other survive mode that we have done has been some form of energy trying to hit us. Like we're jumping over energy balls, ducking under them, crap like that. Here we get this very interesting spider web of burning chains. And we have to look for just little gaps in the chains that we can either jump up to or duck into. Because if our body is crossing any of the chains whenever it decides to ignite, then we're getting hit for decent damage. And kind of like I said with Johnny Cage earlier, back in the Living Forest, I feel like the survive mode does more damage to me than anything else, and that is how you can lose this fight, is if you screw around too much here and you get hurt too much. Otherwise, if you don't take too much damage during the survive mode, then you're probably going to live and win the rest of everything else. But yeah, no, I really thought that this survive mode was kind of cool and definitely in the spirit of our buddy Scorpion. Alright, and that is going to do it. We have defeated Scorpion. I did not end up getting a brutality whenever I did the uppercut, so I guess we're just going to have to go ahead and settle for a fatality, and we're going to go ahead and do the Sareena fatality one more time. It has been fun fighting against Scorpion. At some point, I think I'm going to actually have to use that character myself. I have played around with Scorpion before for story mode, and also just some practice mode. Pairing up Scorpion with the cameo Scorpion seems to be a pretty fun combo. And would you look at that? Just when I thought I was done, here we go with a secret fight. And this secret fight is against Nitara. Now, it's probably a total coincidence that this is the secret fight whenever you fight against Scorpion, but Nitara is actually the boss that we're going to get to go against in the very next season of the invasion mode. So I don't know if this secret fight was supposed to be foreshadowing for her as the final boss in the next season, or if that's just a coincidence, but still, kind of a cool little detail. And it seems like this Nitara has a really good amount of health. I'm starting to wonder if perhaps this is going to come down to the clock running out as opposed to me actually taking away all of her health. I mean, either way is a win for me, I'm not going to complain. So, after we are done against Nitara, we will go ahead and start the Titan battle against the Titan Baraka. And that can be our big finale for the Season 1 of Invasion Mode. It should be pretty brief going through the survive mode that comes with Baraka, as well as doing the boss fight against Baraka. I remember the survive mode being ridiculously difficult if you did it without any sort of assistance, but if you use select items, that survive mode is actually really easy. But we will get to that in a moment. First, let's go ahead and finish up this fight against Nitara and check out the ending cutscene for Season 1 of Invasion Mode. It's something that I have been looking forward to seeing again, and I thought it was pretty cool the first time I did this, so it'll be good to get to check it out one more time. Let us see what exactly happens with the invading Scorpion.
Even though defeated, Scorpion remained consumed by rage. He was a clear and present danger to all timelines. But I knew that it would take compassion, not combat, to calm his fury. Using the hourglass, I found a timeline that Scorpion could not. One which had an unattached Harumi. This Harumi is unlike any other. Having lost her Hanzo to that timeline's Quan Chi, it is she who has become Scorpion. Bonding over their shared grief, Hanzo and Harumi join forces to defeat evil in her timeline. It is not just Quan Chi who should fear these Scorpion's stings.
Alright, that was the cutscene that I was referring to that we would get to see whenever we defeated Scorpion, and I quite enjoy it. Now, I mentioned this whenever I was playing through Mortal Kombat 10, but Scorpion really historically never has a happy ending in any game. He is perpetually the character who is looking for revenge and is constantly being fucked over. So it's really cool whenever there is some sort of a happy ending for this character because it's very rare. And in this case, rather than actually killing the invading Scorpion, Liu Kang helps him out, and he ends up finding another version of his lost wife. And in that alternate dimension, she was the one who ended up being Scorpion instead of Hanzo. And I love that concept. I would love to see that alternate scenario with Harumi as Scorpion. And then for them to team up and go against various versions of Quan Chi and the demons from the Netherrealm, that is a really cool idea. So yeah, I am happy that Scorpion got his happy ending in a way. And it was also cool getting to see Harumi actually get to play some sort of a role in this besides just being the person that gets killed and makes Scorpion feel bad. You actually get to see her for a brief moment being a warrior like Scorpion. And that's just really cool to me. I'd love to see more of that. That is going to be it for the boss battle in relation to Scorpion for this season of the Invasion mode. It's not a lot, but I do like the storytelling. I just wish there was more of it. But what little we get from the Scorpion invasion, well, I do like it. But I will go ahead and put that aside for now. Instead, let's go ahead and go to the Titan battle for this season of Invasion mode. There's going to be the Survive mode and the actual Titan fight against Baraka. I'm going to go ahead and start with the Survive mode. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the Survive mode is really difficult to do without the assistance of items. I tried it a couple of times, it did not work. I'm going to go ahead and skip my failures and go straight to the success when I finally just said, screw it, I am going to go ahead and use items. That being said, you might have to go do a little bit of shopping in order to do what I do. The item that I use to make this work is the Translucency Field. And if you don't already have one of those, go ahead and do a few rounds around the mesas and see if you can find a version of Collector that's actually selling the field. Go ahead and grab that, use the item, and return here, and then you're going to be able to get through this entire mode without having to worry about being hit by anything. I'll go ahead and demonstrate that here in the background, that way you can see that there's literally no way I can lose this survive mode. Everything just runs past me, gets thrown through me, I can do my special attacks, dashing, jumping, teleporting, whatever the hell I want. Nothing is going to hit me, nothing is going to kill me. it is just an automatic success. So, that was easy enough. Now I would recommend also getting an additional item for the Titan battle with Baraka as well. What I recommend using for that battle is the pink potion. That potion is going to double your stats in every single category and should make going against Baraka super easy. And I realize that I am giving advice on this several seasons after the Season 1 occurrence has actually finished. But I imagine that something very similar will come up in the future, some sort of a survive mode or some other Titan battle similar to Baraka. And in the event that that occurs, I'd like to think that this advice would still be relevant in some way. So whenever NetherRealm inevitably recycles some ideas, maybe these will work out for you. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get this pink potion activated and go into the battle with Baraka. Now, similar to other boss battles all throughout the invasion mode, Baraka is gonna come in multiple phases. Only these phases are a bit more dramatic than what we have been seeing throughout the entire playthrough. We will see Baraka get some new abilities, sure, but we are also going to see Baraka increase in size to where he is towering over you and just doing some things that overall make the battle a bit more difficult. In fact, he has one phase where he is armored, I think, the entire time. You can still do things like uppercuts for really big damage and everything, but you're not going to stagger Baraka as a result of it. So even though you are doing damage to him, he can pretty much retaliate instantly if he wants to. So having good defense, good health, and good attack, all super important factors for winning this fight. Special attack and speed or agility, whatever they call it, not so important. And then you want to kind of get used to Baraka's attacking patterns. He's going to do this weird spinning tornado of blades attack. You can just duck right underneath it. As long as you're not standing, it'll miss you. I'm trying to think of what the other attacks are that are significant from him. I know he kicks up some sparks and throws those at you. That one can be a little bit challenging because you're going to have one that's a low and one that's an overhead. So you want to position yourself in a way that you can just block one of them without the other hitting you. And I think you can also jump over Baraka so that he's hitting the sparks in the direction that you're no longer in, but that's a little bit harder to do than just blocking. Oh, and there also is one more thing about this Baraka that I think is really, really cool. So, competitively speaking, Baraka in Mortal Kombat 1 is the best he has ever been, or at least he was back during Season 1 prior to the patch after Season 1 going into Season 2. During that time frame, Baraka was fantastic online, in major tournaments, the character was just everywhere. And specifically, him paired up with Cyrax was damn near a perfect character. Because everything that Baraka could do that was unsafe, using Cyrax at the right time made it safe. And then every time Baraka hit you, he was doing absolutely devastating damage. Like, it was not uncommon at all to see him ripping off 40 to 50% combos on you, and then you're basically dead in 2 combos. Like, Baraka was stupidly good whenever this game first came out. And I think the creators recognized that, and saw how good that the Baraka and Cyrax combo was, competitively speaking. And then they just went ahead and made the Titan version of Baraka that same thing, Baraka Cyrax. That could be a complete coincidence, but I feel like that was a nod to just how good this pairing was back in the early days of this game. Especially if they knew that they were going to be patching this character to the point where he's going to be doing less damage later on, which they did. You could kind of see this Titan battle as a last hurrah for Baraka Cyrax. Anyway, that is enough rambling from me. That was the epic survive mode for this Titan battle, as well as the actual Titan battle itself against Baraka. He did all kinds of crazy shit, to include using the Warhorn related attack that you can also do using one of the talismans, only it's a lot more effective whenever Baraka seems to do it. Not to say that the medallion is bad or anything, just whenever Baraka did it, it was much more of a pain in the ass. But yeah, we did it, and that was it for Season 1 of Invasion Mode, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap everything up here. I'm not going to draw this out any longer than it already has been since we are nearing the hour mark and this is already a two-parter. So I just want to thank anyone who happens to stumble onto this video for watching it to begin with. This has been Thor's Entertainment, and I am Thor. Just thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed Season 1 for Invasion Mode. I hope you enjoy the next ones coming up. Take care, and I will see you next time.
Reptile wins.